What's good, fam? The boy from Toronto is officially in full retreat mode, and we have the receipts to prove that he is absolutely terrified of the shadow Kendrick Lamar has cast over his entire career. Drake is officially ducking the Super Bowl, and it is the clearest sign yet that the OVO empire has crumbled into dust while Kendrick is sitting pretty on the throne. What's good, fam? This is the reason Drake is officially hiding from the world after Kendrick Lamar turned the Super Bowl into a crime scene. Entertainment Now and The Sun are both reporting that Drake officially passed on a guest appearance for Super Bowl 60, which is happening on February 8th of 2026. Bad Bunny personally reached out to him about sharing that massive stage at Levi's Stadium, but the self-proclaimed Six God decided to leave his supposed friend hanging. His team is trying to spin the narrative by claiming he didn't want to steal the spotlight, but everyone in the industry knows that excuse is absolute trash. Drake is staying home because he is still haunted by the ghost of what happened in New Orleans during Super Bowl 59. He understands that stepping onto a football field will immediately make the entire world replay the footage of Kendrick Lamar dismantling his reputation. Kendrick staged a public execution of Drake's character in front of a record-breaking audience, and that shadow is just too dark to escape. Choosing to miss the biggest marketing opportunity in music proves that Drake is terrified of the inevitable memes that would follow his return. This move is being framed as a strategic choice, but the rest of us see it as a total surrender to the pressure Kendrick put on his head. Looking at the benchmark Kendrick set makes it obvious why Drake is currently hiding in his mansion and avoiding the bright lights. 133 million people watch Kendrick use that global platform to tear down everything Drake spent 20 years building. Performing Not Like Us and Euphoria on that scale was the ultimate checkmate that left the entire OVO camp paralyzed and unable to respond. Kendrick brought a cultural energy to the NFL that we haven't seen in decades, and Drake knows he cannot match that raw intensity. The most savage moment of that night was when Kendrick brought out Serena Williams for a cameo as a direct strike at Drake's past. That single move was enough to make Drake want to delete his entire social media presence for good. By refusing to show up for Bad Bunny in 2026, he is basically admitting that he has no answer for the win Kendrick snatched away from him. He is terrified that a live crowd will just start chanting Kendrick lyrics at him while the internet spends a week clowning his every move. Kendrick has officially become the standard that Drake can no longer meet, and this duck proves it. The industry sees this as a sign that Drake has lost his grip on the crown for good, and he clearly knows his time is up. You cannot call yourself the biggest artist on the planet and then run away from the biggest stage because you are scared of a comparison. It shows a lack of confidence that we have never seen from him before, proving the diss tracks did permanent damage to his ego. Insiders say his team is worried that a public appearance will remind people how he lost the war throughout 2024 and 2025. They are trying to protect his brand by keeping him in the shadows until the heat dies down, but things are only getting more intense. Kendrick turned the Super Bowl into a victory lap for the West Coast, while Drake was the one left in the casket. Every time a highlight from that night pops up, Drake has to be feeling the sting of a defeat he cannot buy his way out of. Passing up a chance to work with Bad Bunny shows just how deep the fear is actually running through the OVO offices. He would rather lose a massive professional opportunity than risk being the second best rapper discussed on Monday morning. Kendrick Lamar spent the last year building a massive legacy that Drake can only sit back and watch from the sidelines. There was a time when Drake ran the entire conversation and forced everyone to move to his beat, but now he is just shadowboxing with the ghost. Turning down that spot at Levi's Stadium is the ultimate loss because it proves Kendrick officially owns the culture for the long haul. Winning a rap beef was only the start, since Kendrick captured the minds of a global audience in a way that no catchy hook or expensive music video can ever fix for Drake. 133 million people showed up for Kendrick, and those massive numbers are a permanent reminder of the massive gap between these two artists. We are officially watching Drake enter his retreat era, and ducking the Super Bowl is the smoking gun that shows he knows the war is already over. Choosing to stay small and safe is his only move left, because facing a reality where he is no longer the main character of hip-hop is too much for him to handle. While the world crowns a new king, Drake is stuck on the sidelines trying to figure out how his entire empire crumbled so fast. Rejecting a guest spot sounds minor to some people, but in a game built on power, that move is a literal white flag. Instead of stepping up to reclaim his spot, he chose to run away, and that tells you everything about where his head is at right now. While Drake is busy running from the Super Bowl stage, he has to watch his own brothers in arms jump ship before the OVO Titanic sinks to the bottom. On February 24th of 2026, J. Cole was in Los Angeles for his trunk sale tour when a fan asked about Drake's upcoming Iceman project. Cole gave a response that was absolutely freezing, and telling the crowd he didn't know anything about that project had to send shivers through the entire OVO camp. This was a calculated move to publicly distance himself from a man who used to be his tightest ally in the industry, rather than a casual mistake. Standing in the heart of Kendrick's city and telling the world he has no clue what Drake is doing proves their professional relationship is broken beyond repair. Outlets like Complex and Hot New Hip Hop are jumping on this story because it marks the final collapse of the Big Three era we thought would define this generation. Cole is moving like he knows being tied to Drake is a liability, so he is doing everything possible to stay far away from the blast zone. Heavy reports are circulating that Cole took the extreme step of pulling both Drake and Kendrick features from his album The Fall Off just to avoid the legal crossfire. Treating Drake like a radioactive brand is the only way to survive right now, because the fallout from the Kendrick beef is still contaminating everything in sight. It is wild to see Drake left off the guest list of his supposed partner in greatness, but Cole clearly sees that public perception has shifted forever. Standing by Drake means inheriting all his enemies and bad press, and Cole decided his own respect is too valuable to let it sink with the OVO ship. Seeing his own peers view him as a toxic outcast is a massive blow to his credibility that makes major collaborations look impossible. When your brother in rap refuses to confirm he is on your album while standing in a room full of fans, the story tells itself without saying another word. While Drake tries to act like everything is normal, the people who actually know the business see a man being isolated by the very culture he used to claim he ran. Before we see how Drake is trying to flee the country just to find a crowd that won't mention Kendrick's name, tell me if y'all think Cole was right for jumping ship before the OVO brand fully cooked his legacy. Tell me in the comments, no cap, and while you at it, hit that like and subscribe. Now let's see why Drizzy is so shooks. He's looking for a whole different continent to perform on. Drake is showing how shook he really is by shifting his whole focus to international stages where he thinks the Kendrick comparisons won't reach him, since he was too scared to step on that Super Bowl stage in front of the American fans. Reports say he is now gunning for the 2026 FIFA World Cup final halftime show. That event is set for July 19th of 2026 at MetLife Stadium, and FIFA President Gianni Infantino already confirmed they are interested in getting Drake for the performance. Most fans see this as a massive cope because Drake is looking for a platform Kendrick hasn't touched yet, so he can keep pretending he is a global powerhouse. He is trying to find a whole new sport and a fresh audience because he knows the NFL and the American hip-hop scene already picked their king. The irony of Drake trying to run a soccer stadium after getting kicked out of the football culture is hilarious to anyone watching this war. It is a calculated move to find safety in a global demographic that might not be as tapped into the details of how Kendrick dismantled his reputation over these last 2 years. The boy is leaning into this new villain arc by teasing his Iceman project on Instagram with a cryptic message telling his enemies he is going to make them cry. He is doubling down on being this cold and isolated figure who doesn't need anyone. But the album credits tell a story of total industry isolation. The confirmed producers for the project are Tay Keith and Gordo, which shows Drake is sticking to a very safe and specific sound while the major rap features are missing. A few years back, a Drake album would have had every top-tier artist in the game lining up for a verse, but now the silence from the A-list is deafening. Without the support of J. Cole or other heavy hitters, Drake is essentially making a solo record in a vacuum while the rest of the rap world moves on. This lack of major features suggests that artists are terrified of the Kendrick response that would follow if they hopped on a track with the boy right now. Drake acts like he is choosing to be alone, but the reality is he is being forced into the corner where nobody wants to play on his team anymore. This whole Iceman persona feels like a desperate attempt to frame his loneliness as a choice instead of a consequence of his actions during the beef. He wants the world to think he is a cold-blooded killer plotting revenge, but the people see a man who has been stripped of his allies and his cultural weight. Ducking the Super Bowl and losing the public support of J. Cole are the biggest signs that the war for the crown is over, and Kendrick Lamar is the undisputed winner. Kendrick did more than just win a few rounds of diss tracks because he actually restructured the entire hierarchy of the music industry until Drake became an outsider. The move to target the FIFA World Cup is just another distraction from the fact that he can no longer compete at the highest level of hip-hop in America. Kendrick owns the streets and the stadiums and the hearts of the people, while Drake is left trying to sell a villain arc to a global audience that might not know any better. When you look at the actual facts, it is clear Drake is in a self-imposed exile because the reality of his defeat is too much for his ego to handle. He can post all the cryptic messages he wants and hire all the house music producers he he can find, but it won't change the fact that he ran away when the lights were the brightest. Kendrick Lamar showed the world what a real king looks like when he stood on that halftime stage and claimed victory in front of 133 million people. Drake had the chance to step up and show he still had that energy, but he chose to decline the invite and hide behind a soccer game in the future instead. This is the official end of an era and the start of a long and lonely road for the OVO camp as they try to navigate a world where they are no longer in control. The Iceman is coming, but the problem for Drake is that the world has already warmed up to the new leader and there is no room left for his calculated games. Drake has officially lost the war for cultural relevance, and no amount of international pivots or cryptic posts will bring that crown back to Toronto. Kendrick is the king, and Drake is just another artist trying to stay relevant in a world that has finally seen through the facade.